Imagine a world without power, dehydrating cause you have little to no water to drink, starving cause all the soil is cemented and there's no place to plant crops. Right now, in the current world that we live in, it's unimaginable. Kyle Rodolfo here, and this is my IPBA for Oral Com, Earth Sci, and CPAR. As I said, these things are used unsustainably. I myself use this for granted, like I often take long showers and I always leave the electric fan on when I leave. I often thought that most or all of us have access to fertile soil, energy, and water. But as I do this research, I realize that there are still millions of people out there that don't have access to these things that we often take for granted and overuse. The truth is that one day it could be one of us or all of us that we don't have access to all of these things. But how is that possible? All my life I had access to these things and one day they could be gone or run out. That's the thing we're going to find out. Let's focus on our country, the Philippines. How does it get its energy and power? And I have an important question to you all. Is it sustainable or detrimental to the very existence of energy itself? So now let's talk about the energy mix of the Philippines as it is shown in this graph. Now that you see it, let's talk about how the Philippines gets its power through different energy resources, the issues with it, and how we can mitigate it. When energy is being talked about, Malampaya is the first thing that comes up to our mind. But how does it work? Malampaya extracts natural gas from the depths of Palawan, which is then processed in the production platform and is then transported through a long pipe to Batangas where three power stations used it to power Luzon. This is how our country harnesses electricity through natural gas and oil. Coal accounts for almost half of the energy mix in the Philippines. They harness electricity by grinding the coal and burning it, which creates steam, which makes the turbines turn and generators spin. This exists in Bataan, Quezon, and etc. One of the main issues with fossil fuels is that they are non-renewable, meaning they cannot be replenished, which can cause a massive energy crisis when they run out, like what could happen in Malampaya gas fields and around the world. Another issue is that they are very unsustainable, meaning they can cause destructions in our world such as global warming, climate change, oil spills like the Maras oil spill, pollution, and etc. To mitigate this, a moratorium was imposed by DENR to ban new coal power plants. Another thing is the community pushbacks and protests, which prevented the construction of these power plants. And the last thing is the Renewable Energy Act, which is passed to accelerate the use of renewable energy in our country. Renewable energy accounts for almost a quarter of the energy mix in the country. Let's start with the geothermal energy, which is harnessed by drilling into a known geothermal reservoir like what they've done in Mayon Volcano where Tiwi Geothermal Power Plant is built. The steam causes the turbines to turn, which drives the generators. Lastly, the steam cools off and then inject back to the reservoir. This exists in Albay, Cotabato, and etc. But this has issues with environment and sustainability and also surface instability. That's why efforts can be made to inject the fluid back into the reservoir after it is utilized. Then, subsurface models should be made to know where you can or cannot extract geothermal heat. Hydroelectric energy is harnessed by capturing the force of a moving water from rivers. The force of water makes the turbine spin, which is converted into electricity through generators. It exists in Pangasinan, Bohol, and etc. The issues with hydroelectric are the construction and the threat of collapse of its dams, like what could happen in Angat Dam, which can destroy ecosystems and communities and other social and environmental problems. To mitigate this, better planning of land use around the basins upstream of dams, careful planning of dam placement, and monitoring and reinforcing the dam to prevent dam failures. Solar power works by converting the energy from the sun through solar panels and solar farms. Solar farms are solar panels that are interconnected with each other. It exists in Nueva Ecija and Tarlac, but it has issues with inconsistent productivity and how to store the excess energy. To mitigate this, better solar panels are developed, giant mirrors are used to redirect the heat, and ways to save excess energy for later use through batteries or convert them into clean gas. Wind energy can be harnessed through windmills, which makes a generator create electricity. Ilocos Norte has Bangi and Pagudpud windmills, but it has issues with noise, location, birds, and natural disruption. To mitigate this, quieter blades are made, farms are paid to host windmills so it's not very far away. Research continues to protect the birds and better connection to the power grid. Let's talk about the most important resource of all, which is water. Where does it come from in our country and is it safe for human consumption? There are 500 plus river basins and 79 lakes in our country. These rivers and lakes in the country supply cities and provinces with fresh water, irrigation, fish, and etc. Several groundwater basins are underlaid by about 100,000 square meters of various rock formations and are refilled by rain and seepage from rivers and lakes. The country has a rainfall ranging from 1,000 to 4,000 millimeters per year and is collected by these rivers and lakes. The Philippine Clean Water Act defines water quality by the characteristics of water. The water quality classifications for surface waters classified 611 water bodies in terms of water quality and best usage. Further information is shown in these graphs, and it is said that 1 out of 5 Filipinos do not get water from formal sources. Those without house connections get water from springs, wells, small-scale providers, and etc. Many of our activities affect the quality and availability of water. The graph shown above shows the types and percentages of wastewater in our country. Many of the household activities such as kitchen activities and such generate wastewater. Due to the lack of sewage treatment system, more than 90% of inadequately treated wastewater is discharged into surface waters, which contain bacteria that threaten humans. Agricultural and livestock activities such as the production or raising of chicken and etc. generate high amounts of agricultural wastewater from organic waste such as livestock manure, fertilizer and pesticide residues, and etc. Due to many of these farms having no waste treatment. Water-intensive industries such as dairy and food manufacturing and etc. all discharge large amounts of hazardous and industrial wastewater. As of now, there's little to no wastewater treatment facility for hazardous waste. The amount of industrial waste and hazardous waste is shown in this graph. Look how large they are in our country alone. We all know water is a limited resource and this could run out someday. That's why how can we conserve and protect it for future generations? Let's start by listing the easiest ways to conserve water. We know that gardening and having a lawn use a lot of water for cleaning and maintenance. That's why it's advised that you should not water your gardens and lawns between 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. in order for it not to be dry. It is also advised that you should only water it 1 to 2 times a week as they can hold water. You should check for plumbing leaks, install water efficient fixtures, never ever leave your faucet running whenever there's no one using it. Taking a shorter time to bathe. I know you love long showers but you need to stop it. Recycling water like laundry water can flush the dust outside and such. Saving rainwater can be used for watering plants. All of this and many more can help and reduce the amount of water used and also your water bill. Using and disposing of harmful materials properly help protect the groundwater. Join in environmental cleanups, discuss things with your community and government on how to protect and conserve the water resources. Governments should step up and implement laws that protect our water resources. The Philippine Clean Water Act is passed to protect the country's water bodies and fight its declining quality due to pollution through strategies and efforts. The Climate Change Act, the Water Code of the Philippines, the Waste Control Act, and more are the laws implemented by our own government in order to protect our water resources for future generations. Soil is also a key factor for the survival of the living things in our planet. So how does our country utilize and use it? The Philippines has a total of 30 million hectares of land area. The graph above shows how our country uses it. Only 7.2 million hectares or 45% out of the 15.9 million hectares classified as public or forested land are actually forested. Agriculture is one of the main sources of livelihood and soil utilization in our country, with more than a third of our population depends on it. As you can see, these are the main crops planted in our country and the area that they take. Our country is hilly to mountainous, and the Philippines is considered the fifth most mineralized country in the world. It's shown there are ranks in mineral deposits. 872,000 hectares or 2.91% is covered by the country's 44 mining tenements where 37 are still working. How do our activities affect the quality and availability of soil? The presence of toxic chemicals in the soil in high concentrations is what defines soil pollution, which can lead to high soil acidity, lower agricultural yield, and many more. These chemicals can also leak into the groundwater, causing further pollution. The factors that affect the quality and availability of soil is stated there. Even though agriculture is beneficial to millions of people, it can also severely affect the quality and availability of soil due to the increased use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides. Even though these fertilizers help to enhance the fertility of the soil and increasing the number of crops in the fields, in the long run, it poisons the earth and the groundwater under it, which backfires its purpose. Soil erosion is defined as where the top fertile soil is lost. The causes of it are wind due to the lack of plants and trees planted, rain and water, overgrazing due to the cattle being allowed to graze the same field repeatedly, causing the field to run out of grass, and deforestation is the leading cause of erosion. When trees are cut and when the forest is cleared, the topsoil is eroded by wind and flowing water. The leading cause of soil pollution is industrial activities. This is due to the increased amount of mining and manufacturing. The industrial activities that causes soil pollution are listed above. This includes the dumping and usage of chemicals, foundry, manufacturing, construction and mining activities, improper waste storage, and etc. Soil is very crucial for the survival of the living things in our planet, as this is where our food comes from through its vegetation and agricultural activities. That's why even though it's a complex problem to solve, we, as humans, the government, and such have the responsibility to solve the soil pollution and contamination. The strategy to prevent and lessen soil and groundwater pollution is to lessen the use of chemical fertilizers on the soil. Reforestation and afforestation should be implemented and encouraged because the roots of the soil are known to hold the soil together to prevent erosion. Recycle and reuse the products that we use, cut down on our consumption, and be more sustainable at our homes. This could lessen the waste that we generate that ends up in the soil and the landfills. Another strategy to protect soil is soil conservation, which is used to protect the soil through combination of practices. It protects it from degradation. This includes conservation tillage, no-till farming, contour farming, strip cropping, windbreak or shelter belt, and crop rotation. This can lessen the harmful ways agriculture is done by farm to the soil. Let's talk about our last topic, which is the waste generation in the Philippines. Our country is generating different types of waste way beyond its waste management capacity. This comes from the 100 billion population of our country that generates 21 million metric tons of waste each year. We are also generating 2.7 million tons of plastic waste each year, with 20% of it ends up in the ocean. This is because of our country having a sachet economy. Filipinos tend to buy cheaper products like plastic sachets in order to fit in their small budget. It is implied that 15 to 60% of the waste is improperly disposed of or littered. This goes to the open areas, which leads to more pollution into soil, air, and water, and the climate change of our country. The graph shown there is the waste composition of our country. Now we know the percentages of waste in our country. But what are the types of it? It is shown above the three types of waste, which is solid waste, liquid waste or wastewater, and gaseous waste, which includes the greenhouse gases. It is further classified into four. Biodegradable waste are the ones who can decompose, non-biodegradable waste, hazardous waste, which is dangerous to us humans and the environment, and non-hazardous waste. Here are the effects of improper waste disposal. Soil contamination and pollution can lead to lower agricultural yield and many more. Water pollution and contamination can cause flooding to many areas and many more. Air contamination can lead to the destruction of ozone layer and us having troubles to breathe due to the greenhouse gases. Ocean pollution can lead to algal blooms and clusters and the extinction of aquatic bodies. Combining all of these pollutions and contaminations can cause global warming, climate change, the contamination of fresh water and groundwater, diseases, and very much more. That's why living in these types of environments is very unbearable to its dwellers. That's why improper waste disposal is not only detrimental to us humans and the environment, but to the planet as a whole. We all know improper waste disposal is very harmful to us. That's why how can we manage it? It is shown above the ways how we can manage waste. Hygienic landfills are pushed in order to lessen the harmful effects of the traditional landfills. Hygienic landfills can be beautified to serve as parks like what they've done in Payata's landfill. Incineration or combustion is done by waste being burned at high temperature like what they've done in Singapore. Composting is done in organic farming by the decomposing of biodegradable waste. And doing the 5 Rs in waste management such as the reduce, reuse, recycle, recover, and repair can help lessen the waste by our own waste. By doing this, we can lessen the detrimental effects of waste mismanagement and improper waste disposal. Let us all remember that our world gave us everything that we need to survive on this planet. From the water that we drink and is very crucial for our survival, to the soil where the crops are planted and where we live, to this very energy that we use every day. And yet we've created so much waste in this world, all of which we have tackled today. The sources of it, how we cause degradation to it, how we can mitigate the issues with it, and how we can conserve and protect it for the future generations. I would like to tell you this again. Just imagine the mere imagination of living without any of it. If after this speech no progress is done, all of this will be true. Just look at these images. All of these are effects of our actions. I hope all of these lessons will be engraved on our minds. Before I end, I'll leave you with this quote that what's the use of a fine house if you haven't got a tolerable planet to put it on? By Henry David Thoreau.